All right, welcome back to lesson 106, solving radical equations for Algebra 1. This is, I don't think it's a very hard lesson. We do need to check. I'm gonna teach you how to check in a couple of them, but I'm not gonna keep on checking after, a certain number of examples. But I hope that you do. And the reason that you obviously have to check is because you need to learn how to do it. Let's get into the lesson. All right, example 1. This is A and B. So I'm going to actually check these. That's why I wrote them like this, a little bit spaced out. And so the first thing that we have to know is that if we're square rooting the x, well, we don't know what square root of x is. But to get rid of the square root, we have to do the opposite operation. And so the opposite of square rooting is squaring. Actually raising to the power of 2. And so we're going to raise the whole thing to the power of 2. Yay. And so it's going to be x, because square root of x squared is going to be x. And 7 squared is going to be 49. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. And then how do we actually check? Well, to check, what we're going to do is we're going to do... put a 49 instead of the x. So square root of 49 equals 7. 7 equals 7. Boom, I checked. Wow, crazy. And in here, what we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to square the whole thing. Square root of 4x equals 12. And so it's going to be 4x equals 144. And then we're going to divide that by 4. So x is going to be, in 14, it fits 3, 24, 36 is going to be 36, right? And so again, we're going to put that right there. But we already know that 36 times 4 is 144, but we have to do it anyway. 4 times 36 is it 12. Well, 4 times 36 is 144. Square root of 12 is, square root of 144, sorry, is 12. And so 12 is 12, and boom, I finished. That's it. Let's move on. All right, the last 2 parts of example 1. And so I'm not going to check this one, so I'm just going to give you what the answer is. I might just check it mentally, and I'll show you how I'm doing it mentally, but it's actually pretty easy. So again, we're going to square both sides, not square root, but square. We're going to raise it to the second power. And so it's going to be x plus 2 is going to be 144. Well, then we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. And so it's going to be x equals 142. And that is correct. How do I know this? Because 142 plus 2 is 144. So if I put 142 here, plus 2 is 144. Square root of 144 is 12. That's what I meant by checking mentally. Now in here, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to square. And so it's going to be x over 2 minus 6 equals 64. Well, the 64, I'm going to add the 6 to both sides. So it's going to be x over 2 equals 70. Then I'm going to multiply times 2. And so x is going to be 140. Okay, so pay attention here. 140 divided by 2 is going to be 70. Minus 6 is going to be 64. Square root of 64 is going to be 8. That's why I know it's correct, because 140 divided by 2 is 70. Minus 6 is 64. Square root of 64 is going to be 8. That's how we check. And that's it for example 1. It's actually pretty easy. Let's move on. All right. So in example 2, we have the first two, A and B, are very close to each other. They're very, very close to what they are to each other. And so x minus, square root of x, minus 5 equals 8. And square root of x plus 5 equals 8. So again, I'm not going to check it by writing it down. I'm going to do it mentally. If you need to see how they check it, you can look at the book. I'm going to just explain what the book is doing. So the first thing is we cannot square root right off the bat. We have to get rid of the number that is right next to the square root of the variable. And so in here, we're going to add 5 to this side. And so it's going to be square root of x equals 13, because 5 plus 8 is 13. And in here is going to be square root of x equals 3. because we subtracted 5 on both sides here. So you have to be careful about that. Now we're going to square root both sides. And so x is going to be 169 in here. And if we do it here, x is going to be 9. Let's check. In here, 169. So if I put 169 here, square root of 169 is 13. 13 minus 5 is going to be 8. Boom, I got it. This is right. What about this one? Well, I'm going to put 9 here. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 plus 5 is 8. Boom, I got it. And that's how you do the first part of example 2. And for the second part of example 2, pretty easy too here, because what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 3 both sides, because we can't square just yet. We have to leave the square root by itself. So it's going to be square root of x is going to be 7. Then we're going to square both sides. X is going to be 49. Okay, let's check. 49. What is square root of 49? Square root of 49 is 7. I was confused with this 3. So I'm just going to erase this for the sake of me not getting confused. But what I did here to get the 7 is I divided by 3. Hopefully you guys know that. So 49 here. Square root of 49 is 7 times 3 is 21. I got this correct. What about here, this one? What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply times 2 on both sides. And so square root of x is going to be 36. We're going to square both sides, and that's why I have my handy dandy calculator just in case. And so 36 squared is 1,296. So x is 1,296. Let's check. What is square root of 1,296? I don't even need my calculator because we already found out. Square root of 1,296 is going to be 36. So what is 36 divided by 2 is 18. Oh, I got it right. And that's how you do the first 2 examples of lesson 106. So let's move on to example 3. Okay, so in example 3, we have 2 parts to example 3, but I want to go over each one separately. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, probably should do something with that cable. I'm sorry, I was looking at the cable instead of the problem, because I don't think it's very hard. We have to square both sides, and so it's going to be x plus 2 equals 2x plus 4. Right? So we squared both sides, and so we get x plus 2 equals 2x plus 4. Now we just solve for x, which is I always move from the least amount of x to the most amount of x. So I'm going to leave x on the right side and move the 4 over here. So it's going to be negative 2 equals x. That's what I got for x. So let's check if it's negative 2. So negative 2 plus 2 is going to be 0. Square root of 0 is 0. So in the right I got 0. And then in here, what is 2 times negative 2? 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 4 is going to be 0. Square root of 0 is 0. Boom, I got it right. This is the first part of example number 3. Now that I look at it, I barely wrote anything on the board. Let me explain to you really quickly what I did. Anyway, so minus 4 on both sides, and minus x here, and minus x here. And that literally is going to give me negative 2 equals x. Because x minus x is 0. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. 2x minus x is x. 4 minus 4 is 0. That's it. So let's move on to the second part of example 3. Okay, so we have x plus 2 minus 2x equals 0. Sorry. Square root of x plus 2 minus square root of 2x equals 0. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to move this 2x over here by adding 2x on both sides. This time I'm actually going to do it. Square root of 2x on both sides, not 2x. Square root of 2x. I keep getting into this habit, really bad habit that you guys have. So then we end up with being x, square root of x plus 2 equals square root of 2x. Now we can actually square the whole thing, and now we get x plus 2 equals 2x. Again, we're going to move the x from here to here, and so 2 is going to be x. To check, we're just going to put it where it is. So 2 plus 2 is going to be 4. Square root of 4 is 0. Minus 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. So, did I say square root of 4 is 0? No, square root of 4 is 2, okay? So 2 plus 2 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. Minus 2 times 2, which is 4, which the square root of 4 is 2. But 2 minus 2 is going to be 0. X is 2. That's why it's correct. Now let's move on to finding extraneous solutions to these type of problems. So let's see what type of problems we're talking about. All right, so in this example, we have square root of x minus 1 equals x minus 3. So we have to square both sides. So in here we have x minus 1, and in here we have PEMDAS, because x minus 3 would kind of get squared all of it, so I could do that. And so x minus 3, as you know, is going to be x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay? Now what I have to do is I have to move the x and the negative 1 over to the other side, like we've been doing before, so that we get everything on one side. So I'm going to subtract the x and add the 1. So if I subtract the x, it's going to end up being 0 equals x squared minus 7x plus 10. Yes? Hopefully you guys can see what I did. I subtracted the x and I added 1. So I added 1 here and I subtracted the x. Now that I have that though, let's see what happens. 0 then is going to be 10 is 5 and 2, which is what I'm going to use, minus 5 minus 2. Why? Because negative 2 minus 5 is going to be negative 7. So I told you, you have to become really good at factoring. So now I'm going to check. I think I can check over here because I'm sure that in the bottom somewhere we have like glare. So I'd rather not have glare. So, all right, for some reason, the recording literally stopped while I was explaining the rest of the problem. So I determined that the recording stopped here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for x. In here, x is going to be 5 and x is going to be 2. Why? Because if I make x minus 5 equal to 0, I have to add 5 on one side, and so x equals 5. And if I do x minus 2 equals to 0, I have to add 2 to both sides, and so x equals 2. So that's what I do. But now I have to check. So I'm going to check over here because I know that you guys can see it. And so x 5, right? And so in the beginning, it's going to be square root of 5 minus 1 equals 5 minus 2, right? Instead of the x, I put the 5 because that's what I put. And so it will be 5 minus 1 is going to be square root of 4 equals 5 minus 3, not minus 2. So it's going to be 2. Square root of 4 is going to be 2, and 2 is 2. So that one is correct. Now let's check for x equals 2. So I'm going to put square root of 2 minus 1 equals 5 minus 3. Not 5, but 2 minus 3. My bad. Why 2 and not 5? Because we're checking for 2, not 5. We already checked for 5. And so in here, we're going to have 2 minus 1 is going to be square root of 1 equals negative 1. Square root of 1 is 1, but it is not the same as negative 1. So I know that this is extraneous. And in your answer, you have to write the answer x equals 2 is extraneous. So the only real solution is x equals 5 is the only real solution. Okay, so that's what you have to write. And let's move on to the last part of example 3. Example 4. This is example 4. And this would be it for lesson 106. Okay, the last example, square root of x plus 5 equals negative 2. All right, so I'm going to mark this 5 a little bit thicker. There we go. So the first thing that we do, again, is move the positive 5 to the other side. And so to move it, we're going to subtract 5 on both sides. And so it's going to be square root of x equals negative 7. Then we're going to square root both sides. And so x is going to be 49. Okay, x is going to be 49. And so what we do is we check. Okay, let's check. Square root of 49 plus 5 equals negative 2. Well, square root of 49 could be 7. Or is 7. In here, we're not going to count the negative, okay? It's just going to be 7 plus 5 equals negative 2. And so 12 is not negative 2. And so we're going to say that the answer, the solution, 49, is extraneous, so it has no solution. The reason is because we're not counting the negative 7. We're only counting that square root of 49 would be positive 7 and not negative 7. And so that's why it's extraneous, and that's why we have no solution. And that's it for lesson 106. So you know what to do. You can like, comment, subscribe, get that rolling. I have 41 subscribers. I have more than 41 students, so I'm surprised. But, you haven't subscribed yet. It's probably because you're not watching this, which I am suspicious of a couple of people, like the brothers. Obviously, I didn't really expect them to keep up. Duh. Not like they have changed or anything. The brothers. Melissa has been really quiet lately. Like, very, very quiet. That's suspicious. I think she's not really doing any of the work. But, again, who knows? And so that would be it. But the ones that have been more active is people. Dante has been very quiet lately too, so I don't know. But Isaac has been constantly there. I know that Johanna has been a quiet presence. I don't know if she's watching the videos. She probably thinks that she's too good for the videos, maybe. But she's doing the homework. That's good. So Johanna and Dante's been quiet. And I'm trying to go by rows where you usually sit. That's why I start with Melissa and Dante and Johanna. And then behind Johanna is Sophia. Sophia has been active. I've seen her here and there. Isaac. I already said Isaac. Then Jaden. Jaden has been coming and going. I don't know. It's really weird with Jaden. The brothers. Peniel. Super quiet. Another one that has been super quiet. I don't know what's up with that dude. Who else? Yawa also very quiet. RJ is active. RJ actually I've seen him a couple times. So RJ is fine. But Yawa and Peniel are not fine. And not the brothers. I don't know what's going on with Peniel. I don't know what's going on with a lot of people. And that's one of the reasons that I've been telling you, please stay active in Google Classroom. Because if you're not, then I'm just going to assume that you're not doing the work, period. And if you're not doing the work, then you're going to start getting points off. And a really good way of also knowing this is by the assignment book signing. And there's been people that didn't even turn it in the first day. So I don't know what's going to happen from now on. But I'm telling you, it's really weird. And if you're sending it to me from a weird email or a weird phone number, please tell me this is so-and-so's assignment book. I'm not going to go around guessing. I have a lot of things to do. This is probably one of the most active I've been in just trying to figure out how to teach everything. And it's just a lot of work. I've been doing so much work. And that's why I'm not cutting any slack. If I'm doing a lot of work, you have to be doing your work. Because then I'm just wasting my time. And I absolutely hate wasting my time. And so if you're making me waste my time, I'm going to fail you, period. That's it. So yeah, warning for those people that are not being active. I'm keeping an eye on you. I kind of know who you are, so you better start getting active. I mean, Josiah is kind of active sometimes, but sometimes not, so he better like keep it up on becoming more constant. And yeah, so that's it. I will see you tomorrow for lesson 107.